Hey, what is up guys, and welcome to the STiKS EU. Sorry about the delay, we had a little bit of technical problems, hashtag blame Tommy, but yeah, we're all good now, thankfully. Hopefully we're alright, hopefully there's no problems, hopefully, but yeah, moving swiftly on.
You've already said hopefully about 5 times.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the show's going to happen. It is April Fool's, you know, Golly could be like twisting the cogs behind the screens and making it all just, you know, staticky and horrible. But yeah, moving on. As per usual, I'm joined by my my co-host, my partner in crime, Tommy. Say hello.
Good evening, everyone.
And yeah, today we're actually kind of here with a special guest. It is none other than formerly Nasty Neil, when I first knew him. I've known him for a while now. And now it's GrumpyGamer, community manager for Epsilon. Just say hello. Tell a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. I could drag on a while, that one. My Neil. For those that know me, I'm Neil. For those that don't know me, I'm the Grumpy Old Gamer, or Epsilon Grumpy. I'm the community manager for Epsilon eSports and also for Ava Media in the UK. So yeah, good to be along, guys.
So obviously, a lot of people probably may not know you because obviously you do a lot of the things kind of behind the scenes, the stuff we don't get to see. But can you just kind of run through, like, on a standard week, what would kind of be in kind of your day's schedule? Because I understand obviously you do a bit of stuff on YouTube. You do, as you said, some reviewing, and obviously you do some stuff for Epsilon as well.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, the week consists mostly from an Epsilon point of view of liaising with sponsors, liaising with the players themselves. If they have any requests for equipment or any requests in general, sort of responding to those, speaking to Greg, the CEO, seeing if there's anything going on that needs reacting to. And obviously the major part of it is the social media side, so covering Facebook, Twitter, and responding to emails and stuff like that. It's, as you can understand, over the last couple of weeks, it's been really hectic, keeping up with things. So, but yeah, now generally speaking, that's pretty much how things go. And as I say, you know, keeping on top of sponsors and really a liaison, sort of a buffer between Greg and the teams.
Awesome. So basically, when people kind of tweet at Epsilon, etc., you're kind of that person that's, you know, replying, favoriting, whatever it be.
Yeah, generally speaking, there's about 3 or 4 of us that have access to the Twitter account, but generally speaking, it's myself and also Zik, the FIFA manager. He tends to handle any of the sort of information that comes in, particularly if it's from sort of French fans. If they tweet in, then Zik will handle that side of it. Even though, yeah, I try and handle some of the French stuff, but it's much easier for him to handle it.
I was going to actually ask that because obviously Epsilon, a European organisation, you have multiple teams. Well, I'm sure you'll go and explain in a minute after I ask you. But yeah, I was going to actually ask that. It's because it's European and because Europe has quite a bit of languages. I was going to ask if there's, you know, different social managers for different countries. But why don't you just go and briefly explain like kind of the depth of Epsilon? Because if I'm correct, you don't just have a COD team. You have like quite an extensive FIFA side and also a CSGO side, right?
Yeah, CSGO unfortunately obviously had a little bit of a hiccup a couple of months ago now, which has left us a little bit in limbo. We do still have Scream, who is a really good sort of exposure for us. He's got a really good fan base in CSGO throughout Europe, which is really nice as well. So he's still remaining and streaming on behalf of CSGO for Epsilon. We also have the CSGO ladies team, which is actually quite a nice thing to be dealing with. They're actually flying out, I believe, today to Copenhagen Games for this weekend. So it's really nice to have them as something different, even though the male CSGO side has gone a little bit stale for us because of the difficulties we had a couple of months ago. The ladies have really sort of picked up the baton on that. So that's a nice side to have. So that's the CSGO thing. That's a little bit in limbo at the moment, but that's up and running. You're quite right. The FIFA side has always been very strong for us. Has always been mostly French and is still so at this moment in time. We picked up a couple of new players recently who are doing really well in sort of Gfinity qualifiers and stuff like that. So yeah, FIFA is always really strong for us, and it's a really good side to Epsilon's games. Then we've got the Battlefield team, who again are really strong in what they do. They've just qualified for ESL 1, so they'll be flying the flag for Epsilon again in Battlefield. Unfortunately, lost out in the final last time round. We've got a Halo team, obviously, who we picked up recently, who are going really strong as well. So, and add to that, we've got a couple more PC games. We've got Infinite Crisis. We used to have Team Fortress, but that's fallen by the wayside. And I'm desperately trying to think of anybody else I'm missing, because I'm really annoyed.
So many teams.
Yeah, obviously there's a COD team, which obviously we're going to talk about anyway, so I won't really mention them. But yeah,
we all know about that.
Yeah, so it's really good that we've got a real strong background of a number of different teams. So it keeps you on your toes, of course, but also it's good that there's a really wide variety, and we're streaming daily from a number of those teams, whether it be CS:GO, Battlefield, FIFA. So we've got a good proportion of games represented at Epsilon, both streaming and obviously competitive wise.
Do you have the Halo team still, or is that a team you forgot, or is that no more?
No, I said Halo.
Yeah.
If you'd have been listening, I did.
Kingdom's in the chat going, Epsilon
Halo.
Halo,
He said Halo, and I was like, did he say Halo? You should have said Halo. But yeah, that was probably my fault.
Yeah, no, the Halo guys took part in the Battle of Europe. They won FCO. Then they unfortunately missed out on the Battle of Europe, but they're at I-Series this weekend, competing at I-Series this weekend. So yeah, best of luck to the Halo guys.
You mentioned Gfinity and kind of talked about their online tournaments and stuff. Just briefly, kind of focusing on COD a little bit more, because that's kind of what the show's about, but mostly in general as well. How important is Gfinity as in like the online? Obviously, they have paid tournaments and paid like cups, so to speak. Do you feel as if that's beneficial for the organisation, bringing in some funds for your players, and the fact that if they go on to win these tournaments and so on and so forth, is it important for the team?
I think from the online point of view, it's not really about the importance of the paid tournaments or the prize funds in general on the online tournaments. I think really for us that's more making sure that the teams have access to regular tournaments, so that they're actually playing at the top of their game at any given time. Really from an online point of view, that's really all it is for us. And obviously we can get some streaming out of that. And obviously, like you say, it's regular, which is great, because then, we can build that fan base up from the guys that do stream. The Halo guys are very active on that. We've had a couple of the COD guys that are quite active on that as well. So really from the online side, yeah, I mean, that's really what we consider it, is making sure that the guys themselves are playing on a regular basis. They're happy with the competition that they're getting, and obviously Gfinity have put a lot behind it. So from that point of view, if they are going to get competition, that's the sort of arena that they're going to get it in on a regular basis, on a night in night out basis. So
again, talking about Gfinity, you was kind of like, it's safe to say that you was there at the beginning, obviously with the WGL. Don't know if you can remember me, but you probably knew me from when I was quite an annoying 14-year-old, 15-year-old on that website.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago, trust me.
But imagine you raging at him.
That. Yes, so yeah, we kind of always have that connection together, but obviously now you've kind of seen the fact that it's grown from such a small website of the WGL all the way up to Gfinity, and now obviously recently announcing their 18+ LAN. What's actually this weekend, what we're going to be talking about a little bit more later on. You did a YouTube video about this. For those of you who kind of haven't seen it, because I expect there's quite a few people in the stream and watching the video on demand who hasn't seen it, what's kind of your thoughts on the fact of them making an 18-only event and kind of restricting the viewership and the attendance?
Well, as I said, from my point of view, that video was really done from the point of view of the advancement of COD eSports as a spectacle, not really as the playing side. And as I stated in the video, I go out from the start and say that I understand the restrictions on Gfinity as a company. From speaking to them a little bit, I understand that they are desperately trying to find a resolution that can make COD eSports available for as broader audience as possible. And really that was my emphasis on that, was to say, look, for the past month, we in esports, whether that be Gfinity, whether that be teams, whether that be individual players, had got really good response on mainstream media from promoting esports. Yet then we have a situation arise at fairly short notice that then restricts us as a community from embracing esports and making it the spectacle that it could be. Gfinity have got this lovely new arena that seats 500 people. Yet in theory, we're in a position that we're restricted from who can actually attend and fill that arena. And it was just such a shame for me, personally speaking. As you know, Alex, and some of the community know, I have a son who is 9 years old, and a lot of people frown on people that age going to COD events. I personally have, despite a little bit of bad language here and there, have never, you know, Dominic's been made very welcome at events, and I just feel the event at G3 was a prime example. You had a wide variety of people there, and it was an awesome spectacle. The crowd was immense, the crowd was huge, but also it made it an environment that was really hyped to be in. And I just can't see, and from the couple of events that we've had already, I can't see that level of hype being replicated if you're restricting that audience. And I say it was just a shame for me, and the whole idea of the video was, why would you restrict? And I know why they have to restrict it, so I'll sort of word that. I don't like the idea that it's restricted when we're trying to make it such a big thing and such a spectacle to go and watch, which then dilutes that spectacle if you can't make it available to a wider audience.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, I can see from both point of views. Obviously, as the position I am, I end up spectating quite a few events and turning up to quite a few events. So obviously, it limits my person as a caster attendance. And obviously, I can see from your point of view, from obviously having a son and wanting to bring him along, it kind of restricts the events you can go to. But then again, on the flip side, as you mentioned before, I can understand why Gfinity did it. We had Martin Wyatt from Gfinity the other day. He explained it as well. Tommy, what's your opinions on obviously that being an 18+ restriction?
It's one of those things that I don't think you can win either way, because obviously, as you've rightfully said, you know, you can see both sides of it. Obviously, if they don't follow the age restriction, the publishers, Activision, Sledgehammer Games, etc., won't really support what they're doing. But then if they do make it 18+, it does kind of limit who can attend. But I don't really know. I'm kind of on the fence. I kind of agree with both ways. It doesn't really affect me because I'm past the age of 18. But obviously yourself, Rage, you can't cast at any Gfinity events until you're 18. What kind of sucks, I must admit. So I can understand that. I don't know, because I mean, I get it's the PEGI rating, sorry, not rating. But I kind of feel like they're only watching it, and the PEGI rating's only, I think, meant to be for the actual campaign, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's not that as well. There was a really interesting article which I mentioned in the video that was written by a guy, and he'd mentioned that the PEGI ratings don't apply to spectating a game. They only apply to purchasing a game. But I think it's sort of an unwritten rule, if you like, and it's because it's such a grey area and because esports is so new. I don't think, as Martin might well have said, they can't take the chance, and I completely understand that. But you know, looking at future events, you know, the bottom line here is, if something doesn't change, in theory, there can never be another G3.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, obviously, that's quite an interesting point if it's not the PEGI rating. So is that kind of suggesting that it's maybe something to do with what Activision and Sledgehammer Games are pushing? Is there, you know, some sort of legal matter that we don't know about, etc.? There could be something we obviously don't know about, but it does suck, because obviously, G3, we saw over 4,000 people attend, you know, mostly for Call of Duty. You know, the stands were absolutely packed. I think when FIFA was done, they opened that out for Call of Duty, and it was just insane to watch because it was such a good spectacle. But it's so frustrating because this is basically, in a way, you're right, holding us back, because I would say not a large portion, but, you know, a good percentage of the overall viewership of COD Esports would come from under 18s, come from actual youths. So for them to do this, you know, not by intentionally, more having to do it because to cover their own back, it is limiting COD Esports kind of growth in the sense of viewership at live events. But the main thing for me is we always have live streaming, what obviously draws in the most viewership. And as long as we have that, as long as that doesn't in any way become, you know, inclusive or exclusive, not inclusive, sorry, I think we should be okay, because obviously, yeah, you may not be able to attend an event till you're 18, but you can still watch the stream. But then again, it begs the question, why are they doing this age restriction if you can still watch the stream if you're not 18?
Exactly the point. Are they going to start putting age restrictions on the stream?
Exactly.
And just to try and cover you on that, Tommy, my feelings on that are that we're trying to promote esports growth, and realistically, if you're just going to rely on a stream, that's standing still. That's what we're doing now. You know, that stream watching is how people access esports now. We want to see esports grow. and by growing, it has to be a live spectacle. And as I say, that at this moment in time is unfortunately restricted. And fingers crossed that Gfinity are working hard in the background, and that the powers that be, can come up with some sort of compromise where it's a little bit more open.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously it almost seems to be a different story over in America. I mean, obviously things work a little bit different with the the laws and legislation over in America, and time and time again we've seen a good example is the likes of Stunner Gaming. I'm sorry to draw it away from the EU scene, but obviously over in America, Stunner Gaming, who were at UMG Orlando, I think 3 out of the 4 members of that team were underage. So realistically, if that ban was in place, they would not have got second at UMG Orlando, but it wasn't the case because obviously things work differently, and it just sucks that it's one rule for America, another for us, just because of where we are situated.
Yeah. I mean, I think I asked about what the situation was at MLG, and I'm not entirely sure I got a definitive answer on. I mean, I know COD Champs was 18 plus. Again, maybe because of the involvement of Sledgehammer and Activision, but other events I'm pretty certain have been open to under 18s. Or let's say maybe even open age in terms of anybody can come and spectate for certain. So I don't know. I know, like you say, the restrictions in America I don't think are as hard and fast as they are over in Europe. So it makes it a little bit more open for them. So
I mean, going forward, what would you? I'm going to throw this out to both of you, but what would you say is kind of the way going forward? What would be the best kind of scenario we can have going forward, knowing that for the purpose of Gfinity covering their own back, and for whatever reason to do with legal reasons, they have to make it 18 plus. What would you say is the best kind of option going forward? Is it to stick like this, or is there another option that we don't really know about?
Oh, it's a $6 million question, isn't it? But I mean, for me personally, without knowing what the situation would be with Activision or PEGI or let's say the powers that be, for me, I think if there was a situation whereby you could give some sort of parental consent or something along those lines, I think that would possibly be the best way around it. And then you're opening it up to whoever wants to come, but at the end of the day, you're still stating that people just can't turn up on the door regardless. So for me, without knowing whether that's feasible or not, that's one of the ways that I think you could get around it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it's something that it could work, but it's whether it's not very, I'd say, like, deemable, I guess is the word, because obviously you could just get people like forging that piece of paper, whatever it is. But what do you think, Rage?
Obviously, I have the experience of being to some LAN events, and like Neil said, it's kind of a lot of the time it's been parent consent forms to allow them to compete and allow them to spectate. Obviously, if the game's an 18 game, it makes sense if someone's under the age of 18 for them to actually have like permission from their parents, as kind of makes sense. I mean, they're the ones who are buying the game for them if they buy it like a physical copy. Again, I can understand why Gfinity are doing this. I can understand, obviously, Martin Wyatt mentioned it on the previous show, that it's for the long term. So I can see why they're doing it. I just feel as if, as Neil has said, it's kind of hindering growth. The fact that for the immediate short term, all these people who, went to Amateur Pro events, who went to EGL events, who's been to iSeries events, aren't allowed to go to Gfinity events. And it's only going to really affect Gfinity in the terms of the amount of tickets they sell and so on and so forth. I feel as if it's also quite hard to prevent. I mean, obviously having security on the door, IDing people, so on and so forth, it can only go a certain way because people get in, people get out, and as soon as one person gets in or doesn't get ID'd who is under the age of 17, they're gonna, or under the age of 18, they're obviously going to start tweeting about it, so on and so forth, and it's just kind of a lose-lose situation for Gfinity in the short term. Again, going back to online streams, I feel as if you already made the point about, are they going to limit people online watching it? I feel as if that's kind of impossible because everyone's it's quite easy to lie about your age online. I'm pretty certain we've all done it where, we've made ourselves 120. So yeah, I mean, like it's pretty easy to do. Everyone's done it. So that's not really going to stop people. And I think Gfinity are aware of that. And they kind of got to that stage where they've realized that it's a mistake. They realize it's going to hinder them, but you kind of have to bite the bullet and just ride it out. And hopefully in the long term, it pays off for them. But again, it's one of those catch-22s where like it works one way and it works the other way. It's a nightmare basically.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's kind of annoying because it makes me always think back to COD Champs, because obviously COD Champs didn't used to be 18 plus. I think they made it like 17 plus for the year of Black Ops 2, and then obviously they made it 18 plus, and now we're at the point where, you know, if they do make all events 18 plus, it's really gonna just put a massive, like, the growth will just plateau, I guess, because obviously, as you say, AM2 Pro and all the events that we've seen, you know, young teams go out to, they're basically just going to turn around and say, well, we can't compete until we're 18 and we're 15 at the moment, so I'm just going to go to another game. So do you reckon that if this happens kind of across the UK, across Europe, do you reckon we're going to see, I guess, the European side of Call of Duty fall even further behind the Americans?
For me, yeah, sorry, Alex. For me, I think there's going to be a situation. Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's difficult because also you've got the situation of, you know, are these younger guys potentially going to get picked up by teams, or sort of bigger and better teams, should we say? And that's I mean, that's a whole different subject. But yeah, in terms of actually the whole scene growing, then of course it's going to restrict that. You're going to get the situation whereby where the complaints have happened already in terms of a lack of variety and depth within the European scene. And if you have that, you're going to have stagnation, and it's basically going to have only a limited element of teams that are available to play against. So yeah, in theory, it could potentially stunt the growth of COD esports in Europe. Purely from a lack of strength in depth of teams.
Okay, interesting. What do you think, Alex?
Again, I kind of feel as if we've seen it from the best tournament to probably look back on was AM2 Pro. Was, again, fortunately I was there, so I can kind of talk from a personal point of view. Is like the fact that was the majority of the people who went there was under 18s, and it was kind of known within the community as being an immature event, so to speak. You know, the fact that all these players turning up, and a lot of teams as well. A lot of the well-known organizations picked up teams. I think Deciph actually had a team that was all under 18. Xenex had a team that was all under 18. A lot of these top organizations, but a lot of these well-known organizations in the UK was picking up these under 18 teams, and so it's kind of hindered them in the fact that, you know, all these players who can't qualify for the Gfinity are being dropped. And I feel as if you're a player who's 15, 16. I mean, I started competitive when I was 14, what was a long time ago. And trust me, if I wasn't allowed to compete, then obviously I would look at games like CS, I'd look at other games like League of Legends, I'd try to compete, because at the end of the day, I'm not competing just because I like it. I enjoy competing competitively on a video game. I enjoy esports, so, you know, I'll kind of find an alternative. We've already seen people in the COD community transfer over to CSGO, already seen people in the COD community transfer over to LoL, so it's pretty much like I said, Tommy. I feel as if COD just restrict it, then, you know, we could see Halo benefiting, we could see CS benefiting as we see all these players transferring over. Yeah, it's kind of, again, it's one of those situations where it's really hard to comment on, because in the short term, it's a nightmare. And to be honest, it's just manic. I know I've spoke to a lot of players who are under the age of 18 who kind of don't know what to do, because you know there's some events come around the corner and they're not really sure because they haven't really announced if that's over 18 and so on and so forth. So that's obviously kind of hindering, as in, do they still compete? Do you still grind out the game for another 2-3 months when they could be on a Halo game, could be competing to get better on that? Yeah, I'm going to quickly change the topic because I could probably talk for this for ages. Do you want to actually talk about Gfinity? Not Gfinity, COD Champs. We're going to talk about Gfinity. We're going to talk about COD Champs. Obviously, Tommy, I know you've watched it. I watched it. Neil, I believe you watched it as well. Obviously, you'll be mostly watching the Epsilon boys doing live updates and so on and so forth. We're going to have to talk about that. We're going to have to briefly talk about COD Champs. What we'll do, we'll talk about COD Champs briefly, just go over the top of it, and then we'll go for a break, and then we'll go into a little bit more depth. So overall, Tommy, Neil, I'll start with Tommy first. What is your overall opinions of COD Champs from what you've seen of the stream, and, you know, what was your expectations going into it, and were they met?
I'm disappointed from the EU side of things. I think all three of us will say the same, because obviously going into it, you know, TCM, Epsilon, and a couple of other EU teams looked really, really strong. So for none of them to place in the money for a second year in a row is a massive bummer, because obviously we want to be kind of like what the Aussies teams have been the last 2 years, placing in the money and, being that team that's like, wow, they've actually done it. They're actually, credible now. But it wasn't the case. I'll run through quickly what did actually happen. So for the European side of things, the big teams at least, Epsilon were in the pool of death, as it likes to be called, with, I think, SB and TK. They ended up not getting out of that pool. They lost, I think, all but one of their matches. TCM, I think, lost all of their matches, I'm going to say. I don't know if I'm right in saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had, who else we had? We had Aware. Aware did actually surprisingly well. Aware were able to get out of their pool. I think they were one of 2 or 3 teams to get out. Gamers 2, another team to get out of their pool. I think that may have been it if I'm not corrected. And then obviously going forward, it was quite sad because Aware basically faced up against Mind Freak for a place in the money, and they ended up losing. That was a big shame, but I'm quite happy that it wasn't all American teams. I'll say as much as that. Obviously this is a European show, but I want to give some love to the APAC region, because for a second year running, as I say, they had a team in the top 8. I think Mind Freak ended up placing 6, so just congrats to them, really.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I'll only echo everything really that Tommy said there. It was disappointing because there was so much hope for particularly TCM and Epsilon, and fair play to just quickly brushing that aside. I just know from that, I don't want to just focus in on the fact that TCM and Epsilon are the 2 big names, because Aware did read so well. I think if you spoke to the guys, I think they'd probably be disappointed they didn't get in the money. But I think if you look at it, I don't think any of them would have expected to have got as far as they did. So, I think Aware deserve a hell of a lot of credit. But yeah, TCM and Epsilon, obviously, Epsilon did end up in a bad group, a tight group that they really didn't expect to be, to be in that tighter group when the groups were drawn. So realistically, we should have got out of the group. I think the guys will say that, that irrespective of the group that you get put in, you go to COD Champs, you expect tough games. And I think that TCM will probably feel the same, from TCM and Epsilon point of view, disappointment, of course. But hey, it is what it is. You go to COD Champs, you play difficult teams, but yeah.
Only to just echo everything you all said again. The European was very disappointing. I was kind of sitting there with my Union Jack shrugged around my shoulders, sitting in front of my monitor, watching these UK teams not really played too well, and as a result, I wasn't the happiest person in the world. I was a little bit grumpy. Again, I'm happy for Aware, but we've got to talk about that a little bit later. Again, I don't want to just drain into another conversation, because we'll just sit here for 10-20 minutes of talking about how we've just died. So we'll just go for a break quickly. Guys, don't go anywhere. Make sure you fill up your tea. Make sure you check down below for all the codes on, the scuff, and then obviously for the G Fuel as well. And we'll be back on the other side of a minute. Hey, welcome back, guys. Hopefully you filled up your tea. I haven't. A little bit disappointing, but got important things to do. Yeah, guys, before you get into the show, I keep on having to say this because they do look really, really awesome. I'm not actually wearing my STiKS hoodie today. What's a shock. It's probably the first time I've ever done a show about one, but you can get your hands on your own STiKS hoodie. Not like mine, what's black and horrible. You can get a white one, what actually looks really, really nice. So I'm hoping that I get one of them. And then obviously we got a blue t-shirt as well. I think Tommy's got one similar to that. He actually got the shirt while I got the hoodie. They look really, really nice from what I've seen and from what I've actually had the hoodie myself. So make sure you do check them out. There'll be a link on the screen and there'll be a link in the chat and all that good stuff, because Goalie's a legend and he knows how to do all that stuff because technology's scary. But yeah, they're amazing. Make sure you go check them out. And that's the plug over. Again, it's not really a plug because I generally do like the products. But yeah, we're going to have to talk more about COD Champs because it was such a massive thing. It's a once-in-a-year thing. So it's pretty important. We mentioned about Aware being so impressive, to be fair. I'm pretty safe to say that a lot of us went to the tournament expecting Aware to be, well, not to place higher than TCM and Epsilon. So going into the tournament, they kind of came in as a dark horse. A lot of people kind of thought, they're probably going to get top 16, top 12 max, what obviously they ended up doing. Tommy, what was your support? Was you surprised from this Aware lineup?
Well, out of the European teams, they weren't the team to place there. If I'm going to be bluntly honest, the lineup, they've got some experienced players on that lineup with the likes of PT, but just overall, I didn't think they'd place there. If I'm going to be bluntly honest, I thought if any team, it would be Epsilon in the money, and then TCM maybe just losing out. But you know, I'm just so happy that they got so far. You know, it sucks that they obviously faced up against Mind Freak, and obviously they knocked them out in a close series. But to think that they beat Envy round 1 of the winners bracket was a massive upset. Just overall, you know, Envy for the second year in a row getting straight knocked down into the losers bracket, and you know, as a result of that, Envy pretty much didn't place in the money either. So to think they did that, you know, must have given them a lot of confidence. Then they went into the matchup against AR round 2. Sadly lost that 3-1, and then obviously dropped down to play Mind Freak, where they lost 3-1 as well. But, you know, I don't think they can be too bummed about themselves not placing in the money, because I think they've done an exceptional job, and they were one of the only 2 teams in Europe flying the flag for us. So they've done us proud, I think.
Neil, again, any comments to add to that aware team and the surprises they made at Champs?
Yeah, similar to what Tommy said. I think the fact is that, you know, P2 is really experienced, and sort of brought that sort of level of experience to the team. You know, I think one thing you've got to say about COD Champs is that it's one event, and if you go into that event, you know, high on confidence, and you have you know, you pull everything together at that one moment, you know, and let's face it, you know, Watson played out of his skin, but had been doing prior to the event. So, you know, everybody had spells within the event, within that aware lineup, where they brought something to the team. So I think from that point of view, it was, you know, it was just their time. You know, unfortunately, like Tommy says, they couldn't take it that one stage further, which would have been great to see them do that, because the way they played throughout the event, they deserved, you know, maybe to go that, you know, getting the money. But I think, you know, if you look at it and break it down, yes, it's a surprise, but you can see why they did as well as they did, because they had factors within the team, whether it be Pete's experience or Watson going off at any given time, that actually gave them that, you know, that edge that they did as well as they did. So yeah, surprise, but well deserved.
Yeah, obviously, just to pass on forward, a lot of people kind of did, like, I think COD Esports Peter actually did a bracket prediction where you could kind of predict the bracket. And a lot of people kind of said that Aware would get out of their group, because to be fair, they did have quite an easy group. Obviously, they was in there with Infused, and Infused wasn't really coming to the tournament expecting to place highly with their roster dilemma, so to speak. Someone thought it would be a good idea to get banned, but yeah, I'm not going to go too much into that, because I pretty much rip Reedy pretty much about that as soon as I can. Yeah, obviously, Tommy, you said they beat MV straight away. I think that was kind of one of the biggest upsets of the tournament. So a lot of people have seen MV coming in strong out of groups, and then to place up against Aware. And these Americans, all they knew was PE. They didn't know JT, Joe, and Watson. So out of nowhere, this team of just essentially nobody's from the UK just steamrolled over MV 3-1. Again, unfortunately, they lost out AR. Really have to... I can't say too much praises to Watson. Watson played phenomenally well.
He had like a 1.14 KD.
1.14 KD. See, he's got the stats, man. Here we go. That's what I love about Tommy. That's what I love about Tommy. You know, I just sit here, talk, and Tommy just throws out a stat every now and again. It's amazing. Got any more stats for us?
2 secs.
I'm just going to keep on talking for a minute. But yeah, Watson, to be fair, was kind of my MVP.
In a 29 kills per respawn. Not bad. Over 22 maps, you can't really complain at that. You know, highest level competition, to beat Envy, to, you know, go toe to toe with the likes of AR and Mind Freak, to come out of your pool second, job done, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Watson and P kind of duoed up together. Joe and JT just kind of picked up the slack as well, what they left. And to be honest, Watson, again, I have to say, he was by far one of my MVPs. One of the MVPs to not place in the top 6, if that makes sense. Yeah, really proud of them. Tommy, anything else to say on Champs before we move on?
I think as much as Neil may hate it, I just wanted to kind of touch on the whole Epsilon and TCM thing. Obviously, you know, I think we can all agree that the way the seedings were done, you know, it's all over and done. It was not, you know, in favour of Epsilon and TCM, but, you know, not just the fact that they were in a bad pool. I think there was more reasons to why they didn't maybe perform as well as we thought. Because obviously, yes, they were in a hard pool, but the way I always go about things is, if they can't beat them teams in pool play, do they really deserve to be in the bracket? Are they really going to place in the money altogether? So, is there anything, Neil, you saw from watching them? Because obviously you know them quite well. Is there anything you saw that maybe they weren't kind of doing right? Was it maybe a lack of confidence, or was someone not on their game over COD Champs?
I don't think you can really put it down to any one factor. The team had been together for long enough, even with Swanee coming in relatively late, I guess you'd say. They still knew each other really well, so I don't think you can put it down to any sort of communication issues or lack of chemistry or anything like that. As I said, from an Epsilon point of view, I think if you spoke to the guys, I can't really speak for the guys in general, and I know Swanee gave his interview after the event. It's just one of those things where, maybe bad plays were made at bad times. To be 2-0 up on Team Caliber, and then, to lose that 3-2 was, probably the most gut-wrenching part of it, really. So, I think really you can't pin it on one thing, but I think just more than anything that, the guys just as a collective really probably didn't play as well as their potential and as well as they had been doing leading up to the event. And, it goes back to the age-old things we've discussed of, probably lack of high quality matches on a regular basis in Europe, going over to America and teams that you don't consider particularly high-level American teams. From the point of view of where they sit on a world scale, compared to some European teams are just as competitive and if not better than a lot of the European teams. But because they're not your Optic, because they're not your Team Envious, from that point of view, you don't consider them quite as much. But, strictly business, Team Caliber, excuse the pun, high caliber teams, and from that, probably a little bit underestimated by us in Europe from that point of view.
I mean, obviously, there's a reason as to why they play in the Pro League and so on and so forth. But I don't want to talk too much about the NA teams because, STiKS EU, I'm a little bit salty, I'm not going to lie. After the Champs performance, I don't really want to talk about the NA teams. Salty, I'm not going to lie. I've got a kind of hint as to why these players from the aware played very, very well. We've seen the Infused lineup, although they didn't actually get out of groups, a lot of them kind of pulled above their weight. The only thing I can really speculate about this is something you can probably talk a little bit more about, is how Tommy announced before Champs that he's actually going to be teaming with Vitality under Storm, I think the branding is. Obviously, that can only hint that he's going to be bringing a few players from Epsilon over, or a few of these European players who are considered to be the elite, because obviously Vitality has the funding from Red Bull, so on and so forth. They have a lot of money behind them, a lot of financial support. Do you reckon that's always was weighing on the Aware team and some of the Infused team's shoulders, and even the French teams, as in Epsilon are going to be looking for a team, or Tommy might be looking for some players, and obviously do you think that made them play well, Neil?
I'm going to say no, because I think if you go to Champs and your mind's elsewhere, that's your big opportunity. And I say I can only speculate at this, but I think if any player, if their mind is elsewhere whilst they're at Champs, then really they're not really in it for the right thing, because that's your Football World Cup, that's your Baseball World Series. If you can't concentrate on the job in hand while you're at Champs, really should you be there? So I can only speculate and say no, I don't think so. I don't think that would have mattered to any of the guys. I think they would have been concentrating solely at the job in hand. And if something didn't go right, or if something did go better than they expected, that's purely down to other circumstances.
Another thing I really want to touch on is your personal opinion on the fact that, I've noticed on that hoodie you're wearing, there's a night tick there. There's also, obviously, I spoke about Red Bull kind of supporting Vitality from behind, and obviously Optic Gaming kind of announced their partnership with Red Bull. What's your opinions on all these big companies? Obviously, it's kind of hard for you to say considering that, Epsilon had that partnership in Night, but what's your opinions on all these big companies, these global brands coming into esports? Do you feel as if now's the right time, or do you feel as if they should have came in earlier or later, and so on and so forth?
Well, I think, given, again, I'll go back to what we were saying about the Gfinity age limit thing. There's been a lot of mainstream media promotion of esports over the last couple of months, particularly. And a lot of these major brands have been floating around esports just sort of dipping the toe and trying to find out, what the best way about it has been. But I can only see more major brands coming into esports over the coming 6, 12, 18 months now. Because of the exposure it's getting, you get exposure in national newspapers, on national TV and radio channels, and people are going to start to take notice of that. And there's a lot of sort of products and let's say consumables that people are sponsored by, whether that be energy drinks, whether that be computer components, etc. And there are always bigger companies out there that deal with those products. So if they see one of their competitors, albeit probably slightly smaller, doing well with esports, I'm damn sure you'll find that some of these bigger companies will notice that and try and get involved off the back of that.
Yeah. That's quite an interesting point, because obviously it's kind of like a domino effect you're kind of suggesting, as how one comes in there, they're like, oh, well, we've got to get in this action because they feel like they're missing out. But just to kind of sway away from kind of the business and financial side of esports, obviously we all know Tommy is going to go over to Storm and create his own team. Can you, I guess the word is intel, shall we say, give us any kind of information as to where or what direction Epsilon will be going? Because obviously I think it was Madcat that tweeted out saying they're looking for one, what suggests that the three of them, bar Tommy, are going to stay on the lineup. But, nothing's ever confirmed until it's confirmed, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, all I can do is echo what Madcat said this morning. That he has said that out officially. As of Gfinity this weekend, the lineup from Champs will remain the same. Tommy will be with the team. And then after Gfinity this weekend, Tommy will go his separate ways to Vitality Storm, and obviously set that up under his, with the guys over there. And that will leave Madcat, Swanee and Josh looking for one player for the foreseeable future. So, that's now public knowledge as of this morning, as you said. And really that is an official line. So at this moment in time, there's nothing more I can add, because as I say, we've gone from this morning to now and nothing's happened in between. So nothing's different on that. But yeah, Madcat's tweet this morning pretty much summed it up quite nicely.
But say you did have a fourth player, that's what you would say anyway, is that you didn't have anyone lined up.
Yeah. I'm tricky now.
I can only tell you what I can tell you. But no, at this moment in time, nothing from this morning has changed. I guess from that point of view, you've got Gfinity this weekend. It's going to be, an event, see how people react, see how people follow up from Champs. So, maybe after this weekend, maybe something will change. But hand on heart, guys, nothing's changed from this morning. We're still a team of 4 from Champs going forward to Gfinity this weekend. And then Tommy parts his own separate ways to do his thing with Vitality Storm, and the 3 remaining guys for the foreseeable future look for a fourth. And as soon as anything does come to solid on that side, I think everybody will get informed at that point.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to clear up, because I don't want people to be instantly saying, "Oh, they're losing the Epsilon team," or "Tommy's not going to be there for Gfinity." So that means that Tommy will actually be playing under the Epsilon brand for the Gfinity Open. What's in 3 days' time?
Yes, this weekend. Yeah. As we understand it at the moment in time, the lineup is the same as Champs for Gfinity this weekend, and it's after that point that things will change.
Okay, now I believe we're actually going to go into questions from Twitter. Kingdom Soldier tweeted out, everyone retweeted it, the STiKS Live Twitter, so make sure you're following that if you didn't already, so you can put your questions to the future guests in the future. But we actually tweeted out questions from Twitter. We had quite a lot, a few mixed, a few good ones, a few bad ones, a few ugly ones. So yeah, we picked the cream of the crop, so to speak. So question 1 should be on your screen right now. It comes from Jay Gooley. Apparently he's a goalie fan or something by the sounds of things, because he's trying to copy it for his name. And the question is, why did Epsilon have a poor performance at COD Champs? You kind of touched on this, but Neil, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, all I'll say to that is that, to repeat pretty much what I said earlier, the guys are obviously extremely disappointed. I can only put it down to that, in given situations, they didn't perform as well as they'd like to have. Maybe clutch plays. From that point of view, that's all I can personally put it down to. And I'm sure they would say the same. I think Swanee said something similar to that in his interview with Deserto. That unfortunately they didn't perform as well as they would have liked at any given time?
Yeah, just to answer that question as well, because I assume it's mostly aimed at you, but, you know, while we're here, we might as well answer it as well. To be honest, it's always hard for teams coming over from a separate continent. I know jet lags, I say it's a factor, but then we see Mind Freak doing extremely well, and I'm pretty certain they have more jet lag. But yeah, I know.
Alex, can I just interrupt you on? Because what I'd like to say is that we as Epsilon, and I'm sure the players would say the same, we don't want to blame it on any external circumstance, whether that be the group of death.
Yeah.
You know, the guys were in LA for a week beforehand in the house trying to acclimatise. You know, external circumstances, I'm sure the guys would admit, are no excuses. It was clearly in-game they didn't perform to their potential or as well as they would have liked to have performed, quite clearly. But I, you know, from an Epsilon point of view, and I'm sure the players would echo this, external circumstances, they would not pin it on that because, you know, they wouldn't like to use that as an excuse, I'm sure.
Okay, well, I retract my comment. Sorry. Tommy, do you want anything to add, or do you have any other questions from Twitter?
I'll go on to the second question from it. I just wanted to add to basically what you two have said. I mean, it's really frustrating to see Epsilon not get out of it. Obviously, they did kind of choke a 2-0 lead to TK, and I mean, looking at statistics as well, they had a 1.05 KD. So in no way were they, you know, getting outslayed. I know there's a big emphasis on how you have to outslay the other team to win, etc. But in no ways were they, you know, getting outslayed. I think it was just a matter of, you know, they probably got unlucky in a couple of circumstances, and they ended up losing because obviously the TK match, it was a choke. You know, they were 2-0 up. You know, I didn't actually get to watch the matchup, but just from saying they were 2-0 up, seems to suggest that. But let's move on to question number 2, which should hopefully be on your screen. It's coming in from Nick, and he basically wants to know: do you think Swanee will go back to the US to play for Optic Nation?
Here comes the fence sitting moment. The honest answer, I just can't say that right now. I know he has a desire to return to America. That goes without saying. And again, the honest Epsilon line is what we've stated in the past. We will never stand in the way of a player wanting to improve themselves. And if that means them moving to America, then we'll wholeheartedly support them in doing that. And you know, we will never stand in Swanee's way if that. And he's openly said he wants to do that again. However, for the foreseeable future, things really, you know, aren't any different as we've just said about the lineup. For the foreseeable future, Swanee is still with Epsilon, and if that changes, if he gets another opportunity, of course Epsilon wouldn't stand in his way if that's what he wants to do. Whether it's with Optic Nation, that's not for me to say.
Some would say Intel. I think it's really good as an organisation that, you know, you're not limiting Swanee and being like, no, you're our player. You're not allowed to go to America. So it's really good that obviously you're doing that. You know, it's really good to see that you're not just thinking it from a business point of view, and it's actually more you're thinking about the players and you're thinking about their personality. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that as like a neutral. I really do appreciate that you're actually thinking more about the players and more about their growth than your personal growth as a brand. We actually have one more question coming up. And that's going to be actually it because, you know, we've all got places to be, people to see. And the last question is from Rom Tirok. Oh, gosh. Why do I always get the hard ass? It's like, Tirukio.
They'll see it on the screen. They'll see it on the screen.
Yeah, you see it on the screen, then you read it to yourself and pretend I'm saying it. Okay? If you made a team out of purely EU players, what would it be? So I assume this is just kind of like a dream team. So I'm going to ask Neil and then Tommy because I'm sure he has differentiating opinions, and then I'll ask it, and I'll close off the show.
Putting me on the spot. Right, well, I'll go for the easy one straight off the bat. Swanee would definitely be in there. I would put Mad Cat in there. I would put Jerd in there. And then I'm going to really annoy people now, Anna, because I've got to choose between Tommy, Josh, Moose. Yeah, it's so difficult for me. I think from my point of view, Swanee, Jerd and Mad Cat would be a shoe-in, and then it'd be a toss-up between the rest. So, yeah, I'm going to get splinters in my backside and sit firmly on the fence and give you a 3 and then say best can fight out amongst themselves. Something along those lines.
Tommy, your dream team?
Okay, well, thinking like just from perspective of needing an OBJ Slayer whatnot, I'd probably say Moose, Swanee, Judd, and Tommy. Plain and simple.
All right. Okay. I kind of had the luxury of going last. I chose myself to go last so I could think about it while Neil was answering. I was writing down. I've literally got players written down, like I've got like all the top European players written down. I was like arrows going everywhere. So in that short time, I'm gonna have to say Swanee. Obviously, Swanee is Swanee. And this is just mostly. It might not be the best performance as a team, but this is just the team what I like to see happen. Judd, because I just love him because he's Irish. Shane, because Shane is just Shane. He does the objective work when it's needed. And Excellence. I feel as if Excellence, he kind of needs to come out of retirement. He's not really playing up there at the highest level at the minute. But I really like him as a person. I really liked him when he played during Black Ops 2 and Modern Warfare 3. So he's kind of like the big timer of the EU scene, as in like he's definitely still talented. He just needs to like find himself on a team again. So yeah. A little bit of a weird, obscure answer. There was no Marky B's, there was no Tommys, there was no Mike Cats, there was no Joshes.
I said Tommy. I'm giving him some
love.
No,
from me anyway.
You may not give him some love, but I'm giving him some love.
But yeah, obviously you two have the same name. You're the EU scump and so on and so forth. But before we ramble on, before we get into an argument, I'm going to quickly end off the show. So the way we usually end off the show is we give everyone a minute or two. Again, you can go for 10 minutes if you want, but ideally not. Just to kind of, any shout-outs, any final comments and so on and so forth. So go with Neil, Tommy, and then myself. Off you go.
For me personally, obviously, everybody at Epsilon, starting with Greg at the top. And Zik, our French FIFA guy, he's he really does a lot of hard work in the background as well. All the players, I must say, all the players at Epsilon are an absolute delight to work with. They're always open and always really easy to deal with. So from my point of view, they make my job really easy. So I'm not going to obviously list all the players, but all of them are really good guys. And then obviously the sponsors at Epsilon, so ViewSonic, Fragnet, GT Omega, Net Duma, Bikey, Gunner, Scuff, Nike. He said quickly trying to think of any more. So yeah, all of them, they're the guys that keep us going. So massive thanks to the sponsors and thanks to all the fans who supported us during COD Champs and generally speaking, throughout the year. Sorry we couldn't do anything more for you guys, but plenty of events coming up, so plenty of other things to go at.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you to Neil for obviously coming on. You probably got a busy life and stuff to do, so thank you for coming out of your way to be on the show. Massive thank you as well to just Epsilon as an organisation. They're at the forefront of something that could, turn into, a massive spectacle, and the stuff they do is absolutely awesome. I've been Tommy. You can find links to everything about me down below, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say.
I like it because you're quick. Again, just got to echo what Tommy says. Thanks a lot for Neil coming on the show. Epsilon doing great works. I appreciate the fact that you're probably very, very busy being the man for Epsilon. Again, guys, make sure you do check down below because you've got your STiKS for 5% off your scuff. Why would you not want 5% off a scuff? And 10% use the code Kingdom for your 10% off Gamma. Again, check out the STiKS apparel so you can look amazing like me wearing your STiKS hoodie. And as always, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next week with another guest, and me and Tommy will be here. Yay! See you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.